Wow 30, welcome to your final video for genetics for the year. We are going to be talking about incomplete dominance and codominance. So as we get started, we need to kind of define the difference between the two. So incomplete dominance essentially means that there's no dominant allele. Okay. Instead, they act together to form a in-between trait or an intermediate trait. Examples that we're going to talk about are a type of flower called snapdragons. Snapdragons can be found in red and white colors. Now, normally in our understanding of genetics, that would mean there's a dominant and a recessive allele. But in this case, that's not the truth. Okay. When red and white end up being mated together, they actually create this in-between trait of pink. So it's a blending of the traits. There's no dominant to a recessive. They share or they kind of become a new color. So it looks a little something like that. On the other side, codominance means that both alleles are expressed. We see this a lot in cattle and horses and the type of, I guess you would say, fine fur they have. So in cattle, especially, a red cow mated with a white cow creates this codominant relationship of roan. Okay. Both the white hair and the red hairs are present on the cow. It's not a mixing of the two. They don't make pink like the other side does. You see both red and white. So an example would look like that. So you can see that that cow has both red hair in some areas, patchiness of white in others with patchiness of red. That is codominance. They're sharing the space. They're not blending together. They're just in the same space at the same time. Incomplete dominance is when you take the two alleles and you blend to become something new. So we're going to do an example of a snapdragon and how it would work for a cross. So much like when we talk about X-linked crosses, okay, we need to use a letter to represent the trait we're talking about, and then a smaller letter to represent the allele of that trait. So when we talk about it, we're going to predict the phenotypic outcome of a red snapdragon crossed with a white snapdragon. Now, what you're going to see here is I'm actually going to use two separate letters rather than the same letter. Now, the reason for that, guys, is because neither of these are dominant or recessive to each other. They're actually two separate parts. So red is R, white is W, but I'm using that I to indicate that I'm talking about the color of the snapdragon. So the I is representing the snapdragon. So my legend looks a little something like this, and we know if we blend it together, we're going to get red and white equaling pink. So R's for red, W's for white, and a blended together for pink. You would never, ever, ever do this in a simple monohybrid cross. If you are talking about eye color, hair color, okay, you're not going to do this. Height, tall versus short, okay? You are looking to see if it tells you that there is a dominant or recessive genes for monohybrid. In incomplete or codominance, it's going to talk about sharing. I'm going to make my genotypes for the parents. I'm going to create the gametes. And then I'm going to add them into my Punnett square. So there is my Punnett square. I'm going to blend them together. And you will see that my entire Punnett square has a full grouping of pink offspring because we brought the red and white alleles together. If I'm going to take the same example or similar example, and I'm going to cross a red snapdragon with a pink snapdragon. All right, so again, I'm going to create my legend telling me that red is white, red is red, white is white, and the combination is pink, okay? Again, this is a simplified example. In the examples in the questions you will do in your notes, it'll say to come together to create the new color of pink. So you'll know there's an in-between color, okay? So parents, I have my red and my pink, and I'm going to create my gametes, and I'm going to put my gametes into my Punnett square. So I have the red parent on the top, the pink parent on the side, and I'm going to blend their gametes together. So this is a little different than the one before. Now I have two gametes that, two offspring that are red and two offspring that are pink. Now I wouldn't write it 2 to 2 because I can put it in a lower common denominator, lower common factor, 1 to 1. So it's a 1 to 1 ratio of red to pink. This is an example, ladies and gentlemen, of when you're going to see codominance. Now, I know it's codominance because it's talking about roan. red roan. When you see the word roan, it means that it is a blended version, okay? And in the question, it'll say you will see both hair colors, red and white. So we have the mating of a horse that is white and a chestnut colored horse, and they're going to produce a red roan color. Now, roan again means that both color hairs are present. So again, we're going to use the big letters C to represent that we're talking about the horse's hair color, but the letters with it are going to be two separate colors because neither of them are dominant. Neither of them are recessive, okay? So when I set up my legend, I have white, chestnut, and then the combination being the red roan. So when I create my gametes for my parents, okay, I'm taking the two parents that are two red roan horses. So I'm taking the combination of W and H, and mating two of them together. I'm making my gametes and putting them into my Punnett square. So I now have two horses that are roan mating. What are my possibilities? Well, the first one I could get is I could get a white horse. I could get a roan horse. I could get another roan horse, or I could get a chestnut horse. So in this case, we have a 1 to 2 to 1 ratio, okay? Now, in monohybrid crosses, if you think all the way back to the beginning, a cross like this would have been a 3 to 1 ratio. 3 with the dominant, 1 with the recessive. Because W, let's pretend we're talking monohybrid, was a dominant trait. Then you would see a 3 to 1 ratio. But because there is no dominance in this question, it is sharing, okay? Because sharing is caring. It's sharing its space. So it's saying, I'm not dominant to you, you're not dominant to me, we're just going to share the space, we're all going to be present. We now have a 1 to 2 to 1 ratio because the only time you can get white is if there's two W's. If there is a W and an H, it is the intermediate or the blending of the red hair and the white hair all over the body, and that is roan. And then big H, two H's would be chestnut. So that is an example. Those are examples of incomplete and co-dominant types of questions. You have a bunch in your note package that I would like you to try out, and I will post the answer key so you can double check your work later. Have a great day.